Thank you so much for having me. In fact, the situation is very dire. It is a real catastrophe inside the Gaza Strip. Families are still calling for basic life essentials, and here we're talking about the water, food, um, and basic services that are usually provided to any population. We're talking about a very complex situation here.
Mhm. We've seen disturbing images
Sure.
from destroyed UN facilities. What message does this send to the international humanitarian community?
This point in particular and the destructions witnessed in UNRWA facilities is very terrible. We're talking about 3,000 facilities that were bombed and destructed completely or partly. This hasn't happened in any of the other conflicts, especially that we're talking about UN facilities with the blue flag raised, the coordinates of which are daily shared with the party of the conflict. This is a flagrant violation to any international and humanitarian international law.
I have to ask you about the UNRWA staff. How are they coping psychologically and emotionally while working under these life threatening conditions?
In fact, the humanitarian environment in Gaza is becoming one of the most difficult situations for any staff or humanitarian personnel to exist. It is very serious right now. We're talking about 280 persons killed amid the war, and this is a shocking figure. In total, there is 408 workers in other humanitarian organizations that were also killed during the past few months. This shapes a very dangerous and serious environment for any humanitarian aid workers, which complicates the humanitarian action further.
There are now tens of thousands of civilians living in open air camps without clean water or medical care. What is your latest data on the level of humanitarian need across different regions of Gaza?
The humanitarian needs are increasing by the second. We're talking about 2 million people living in a very difficult circumstances, and it is getting worse, especially that we're talking about a full siege. For an entire month, there hasn't been any humanitarian aid access, and we're working with what we have left of supplies, which is running out very fast. It is warning with a catastrophe on the food security level as well as the medical and medicine supply level. Uh, Also, the other basic services that should have been provided on a daily basis.
We've been witnessing an increased
Shahad.
level of targeting of UNRWA facilities, with the latest being Dar al Arqam school yesterday. What efforts is UNRWA making to document and archive facilities and personnel for future accountability?
All the violations committed during the war period that is still going, unfortunately, are being documented in reports. Some events and military operation, especially targeting UNRWA facilities. These reports are being provided to different entities to open transparent investigations regarding these violations.
Now, shedding light on the international media, do you feel that international media coverage has fairly reflected the scale of suffering in Gaza, especially of children and women?
This is a point highlighted by the Commissioner General of the UNRWA when he talked about not letting foreign media personnel into Gaza. There hasn't been any new personnel going to Gaza for 2 years now, and therefore the current coverage for any conflicts and wars is different compared to the coverage in Gaza. Only the Gazan population are the only ones providing any kind of media coverage. We have seen a lot of media personnel being killed in these repetitive military operations. In addition to what the UNRWA and the other international organizations are doing, documenting all the events and the humanitarian atrocities and the violations committed in violations of the humanitarian law.
Regarding the displacement issue, we've heard testimonies of multiple displacements, families forced to flee 4, 5, and even 6 times. How is this cycle of forced evacuation impacting mental health, particularly among children?
Children always pay the highest price in such conflicts, and probably the injuries inflicted upon these children are being confined or contained, but the psychological impact will be very difficult to treat. We are providing psychological services and therapeutical services for more than 300,000 children through our therapists in the UNRWA center. But the psychological harm inflicted upon these children and these scars left behind by such painful events are very difficult to overcome. These represent our psychological support services in the UNRWA, but this requires a long-run treatment. The displacement also leaves behind permanent scars on children. 40% of the Gaza area, in accordance with some organizations, are now under the control of the military, the Israeli military. So it's difficult for us to access these areas and provide these essential services in addition to other basic services, which is a real catastrophe.
Now, Ms. Hamdan, I have to ask you, with all the border crossings closed, has there been any improvement or breakthrough in coordination with Israeli authorities to allow humanitarian corridors, or is it still completely blocked?
If you're asking about this period for a month, most demands to open humanitarian passages has been rejected or denied, which increases the suffering. We're talking about a crisis, a catastrophe, and a potential starvation, as the food supplies are running out, the medical supplies as well. Without water, without food, without medicines, I don't know how much time we have left for the population to hold on without these essential supplies.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking ahead, if this siege continues for another month, what would UNRWA's operational capacity look like, and what does that mean for Gaza's civilian population?
In fact, it's a very dire scenario for the Gaza population. If we don't see a sustainable humanitarian aid access for organizations such as the UNRWA, which is a lifeline for the population, the Shelter cannot go forward without fuel. We don't cannot provide the medical services without the medical supplies. We provide routine vaccines for children. Without these vaccines, most children will not be able to get their doses of routine vaccines. It is the same regarding food supplies. It is basic life essentials. If we don't see a sustainable flow of these supplies, it threatens the lives of 2 million people.